Okay, Stats 2.3 is short and sweet for the last section of Chapter 2. It's all about what not to do to misrepresent data. For example, general things. Title and label things clearly. Avoid distortion. Don't make like one bar really wide and the other one skinny to make it look bigger. Don't start the bottom of the bar at 70 and the top at 72 and make it look like some giant change has happened, even though they're pretty much the same. Minimize the amount of white space, so don't make your bars super skinny on the left and leave everything open on the right, for example. Don't put too many grid lines in there if you can avoid it. Never make it in 3 dimensions, particularly for pie charts. It just, with depth, it can, again, distort the data. And do not use a bunch of designs in the same graphic. Don't try to influence your reader or someone you're explaining the data to look at things. Look at specific things. You're trying to be as objective as possible. Okay, so looking down at the bottom, where we have 2 line graphs or time plot graphs. Which of these is misleading and why? Here we've got life expectancy in years versus the year. Okay, so the left one is misleading because the bottom doesn't start at 0. I mean, if we compare the relative size, it looks like people in 1950 lived about 1/10 the length that people lived in 2000, and if people today live to about 80, that means people in 1950 lived to the age of 8, and nobody could reproduce, and it was the end of the human race. So this is one of those times where it's misleading because the starting value doesn't represent the difference. 68 and 78 here are way far apart. The one on the right, actually I think that one looks fine. It's labeled well. It represents a slight increase. I don't really have much to complain about there. You could say maybe the tabs, like, I don't know, they really can't do anything. For this thing, I would have used like a broken, like, you know, the diagonal line to say I'm jumping values, but started at 0 and then jumped to something higher to show a difference. Now, similar to the line graphs, we can also have distortion in pie graphs. The National Survey of Student Engagement is a survey that asks first-year students at liberal arts colleges how much time they spend preparing for class each week. The results from 2007 survey are summarized below. Which chart is misleading and why? Okay, so let's look at these 2 charts. In the chart on the right, it looks like the biggest slice is the 16 through 20. But in this 3D chart, the 16 through 20 looks way smaller than the 21 to 25 because the 21 to 25 is in the foreground in the 3-dimensional chart. So this one is really misleading because it's in 3D. I mean, I don't particularly like there's tons of patterns in this one. I would almost rather they just labeled, but they can do what they want. It's not certainly not as bad as the one on the left, which doesn't accurately display the data. So this is the end of 2.3, which means the end of Chapter 2. We will start Chapter 3 tomorrow.